Okay, I'm truly humbled for the honor bestowed upon me in the form of this event. There are two reasons why firstly, I'm speaking at JNU for the first time, not as a student. So we are accustomed of presenting tutorial papers, not being a discussant. So it's really a privilege. JNU is my university, and I was checking. So. Alma mater doesn't belong to the way I think. So I was searching, what should be the powerful phrase to frame JNU as a university. So I called it my university. But then I was checking the etymology of the term alma mater, which is in Latin.
The mic is too close to you.
Okay, yeah, which is in Latin and means generous mother. And I do not know whether feminist in Uma ma'am or my feminist friends will like it or not, but this reminded me of this statement one of my very close CPS friend used to make in his Western UP accented Hindi, JNU is our mother. I can't say it in his accented Western UP tone, but the crux of the matter was he used to say that JNU is basically our mother. It has given us second birth, and I would also say why only second, but third and fourth also. JNU has definitely provided a lot of nourishment, intellectual and others. So I'm very grateful to be here. Like you all, I have been attending these lectures since 2011, but mind you, I have been part of JNU Academic. The first meeting happened in this building. I attended that meeting. So like you all, I have been attending these lectures since 2011, eager to learn more and more. So it means a lot to me to be here, and I wish you all the very best to have this experience of speaking at JNU, not as a student in future. Secondly, I am speaking in front of my teacher on her book as a discussant. I must confess here that I have been deeply influenced by Uma Chakravarti's works, and whatever little research I have done in many ways follows her research and frameworks she has developed in many decades of politically meaningful scholarship. So I thank JNU Academy for this opportunity. I also congratulate them for their brilliant work for keeping JNU an academically vibrant space for which it has always been known for. The book we are here to discuss is another gem in Uma Chakravarti's world of scholarship. Those of us who are aware of Uma ma'am's work know her for a kind of paradigm shift which she brought along with other feminist historians in the history writing. All of us are aware of that. So it was a history through feminist lens, and it was new. So in the 1980s, Uma Chakravarti, along with Kumkum Roy, pointed out the need to rewrite history from the perspectives of women. They highlighted the importance of gender as a category of historical analysis and argued that it is important to study the ways in which men and women are differentiated. They also urged to keep an understanding of links between gender and social reproduction and production. They were interested in a program of history writing which deals with different questions like the following, and I quote, this is an article written by Kumkum Roy and Uma ma'am together. How and by whom is the process, which is social reproduction, controlled? What are the changes discernible over time? What are the links between the process of production? And here we can see the invocation of production, which is a Marxist category, and then these feminist historians are adding reproduction along with the production. So what are the links between the process of production and reproduction, and how these connections change? We might also need to re-examine the present periodization of socio-economic history based on changes in the mode of production. Again, they are in a way making a reference to the Marxist paradigm. If, for instance, recognition recognition of the importance of social reproduction suggests alternative alternative, possibly more fundamental changes, can we then also consider a mode of social reproduction? This is playing with the term mode of production and thinking of a mode of social reproduction, which is the feminist intervention. Now, this framework was best displayed in her formulation in Gendering Caste, or before that in the famous essay Conceptualizing Brahminical Patriarchy, for those of us who are aware. Now, the preface of that essay is interesting, and she has talked about that in Gendering Caste, the book also. And the idea of Brahminical Patriarchy, from where it comes, is basically contemporary volatile situation which she saw during 90s, and she mentions that like this. So there was this anti-Mandal protest going on. Miranda House women and other women from Delhi University were on the streets opposing Mandal implementations, and they were carrying these placards written, "We don't want unemployed husbands." Now, typical of Uma Chakravarti asked, who stops you to marry those OBC and STs, men who will get jobs after these reservations? So that's the
And the formulation should be that मंडल ने तो एक ordinance दिया था, ये दूसरा ordinance कहाँ से आया?
Yeah. So that's the root of this famous famous and very, very important theorization, which is of Brahminical patriarchy. So there she has argued that principles of marriage are inseparable from the very principles of hierarchy at the core of caste-based Indian society. Marriage is thus linked with belief and ritual. It is the purity of its practice that yield hierarchy of caste kind. In that work, she has brought the two powerful conceptual categories of caste and patriarchy as interactive ones, connected and working together to solidify each other. So that's the contribution of Professor Uma Chakravarti. The present book is an extension, I think it's an extension of that line of argumentation by analyzing a different source, which is the Mahabharata. And I would like to ask, since I am a student of Uma ma'am, I can be free and I can ask questions to learn more and more. So one question is, how is this book different from Gendering Caste? With that question I was reading, how is this book different or similar to Gendering Caste? Thus in this book we also find, I think it's an extension. It's an extension of Gendering Caste. Thus in this book we also find announcements like gender as a central axis in writing social history. Gender could move the directions of history. Questions of sexual governance that had an impact on the world of production and reproduction, and has to be the focus of historical analysis. So these are the conceptual frameworks through which she is reading Mahabharata as a text. And then this long sentence where she announces her framework, and this is, and I quote, "How might we flip the relationship between production and reproduction and thus transform the dominant ways of thinking about what constitutes social formation? Would it be possible to say that the emergence of the endogamous marriage system and caste-based hierarchy of social groups and of the particular types of households that were linked to these developments were contingent upon an elaborate code of sexual governance?" And I'm highlighting this term, sexual governance, which constantly figures in this book, which she has brought from Pratiksha Bakshi, she has acknowledged. Which made possible the emergence of class society. So sexual governance is key for the possible, which made possible the emergence of class society. This is again creative Uma Chakravarti, who has given another term, caste as a term, which again she acknowledges a JNU student who has given this term. So caste come class society, and class. Yeah, so that's a term which we can think and use and rethink in different ways. Anyways, so if caste is recognized as part of the further Uma ma'am says, if caste is recognized as part of the infrastructure rather than as consigned to superstructure, as has been argued, then sexual governance too have to be recognized as part of the very infrastructure in the context of South Asia. So basically, feminist historians from 1980s onwards are trying to, in a way, engage with the already available Marxist historiography and bringing this question of social reproduction, sexual governance, sexuality at the core. In the prologue, she foregrounds her theoretical influences in feminist scholars like Jack Goody, Gail Rubin, Christian Ward, Gailey, and most importantly, Gerda Lerner, Creation of Patriarchy, the text she has written. Now, Uma ma'am cites Lerner, who says, and this is very interesting for me, and the Marxist friends who are sitting here, and I am aware that JNU Academic has very core believers of Marxism as an answer of many questions, if not all, staunch Marxists. So, Uma ma'am cites Lerner, who says, the exchange of women and the establishment of control over their sexuality precede the emergence of private property. So the control over their sexuality precedes the emergence of private property. Then there are political implications, there are policy level implications if we are foregrounding this kind of argument. If sexual control over their sexuality is preceding emergence of private property, then we have to think differently. Money cannot, material changes cannot necessarily change the lives of women. That's the larger present day implication of this argument. Now, further Lerner says that this stage of transition resulted in, so basically for those who are not aware of Gerda Lerner's Creation of Patriarchy, she is talking about this transition from simple society to class society, and there she argues how control over female sexuality is very, very central in the Mesopotamian context. So that is the argument. So what is happening here? To reproduce the class structures, the ruling elite of that society is interested in governing the sexuality of the woman. Now, so this is the paradigm which she uses. 5 points. It's enough. Yeah. So the text. Now the text. So this is the theoretical framework, typical Uma Chakravarti theoretical framework. Now the text is Mahabharata. The text for analysis here is largely Mahabharata, and I was stuck with one thing. So nowhere, at only one place, Uma ma'am talks about the dating of Mahabharata. So only once, and then the historian in me, I cross-checked all the references where only once you have mentioned the dating, and then it's almost a commentary on Mahabharata then, and she assumes that readers are aware of the context at least. So now I'm sharing this dilemma while reading such text, and I'm hoping for responses, creative responses from Uma ma'am and others. So so how to deal with this text like Mahabharata? So past often appears in front of us in its monumentality not necessarily of build and moment kind, but also in the form of textuality. Mahabharata in that sense is a monument, big and thick, elephant-like. And those who work on Mahabharata must be aware that it took 20 years for V.S. Thankar to create this critical edition of Mahabharata. So it's almost elephant-like. Now, I'm not saying the thickness is not the issue. I'm also talking about the thought world of Mahabharata and that monumentality. It's there, always there. How to deal with monumentality from the vantage point of the present? Shall we praise the monumentality? from a distance in time, one instinct, if not first, is to praise it for its enormous narrativity, beautiful verses, the kind of ethical questions it poses in front of us and resolves. So there are different varieties of stories which are all, I'm also all struck with certain small narratives which are part of the larger narrative. Now, or shall we deconstruct it, brick by brick, sand by sand, to expose its fairness or with its farceness or loops? What historians do or ought to do with the text like this: appreciate the monumentality, allow others as well as to participate in this monumental experience, the way we appreciate a Humayun's tomb or Taj Mahal probably. Do historians run an appreciation course in past or pastness? Some historians do. If you look at the recent work of Dalrymple and even and the old nationalist historians. So what historians do or ought to do? The historian we are discussing here is offering a critique of the past as well as the text. The larger dilemma which I want to share with Uma ma'am and seek responses from her is following. As a historian, what to do when the past is full of injustices, of the ethics which are contrary to the one in which historian believes in. For feminists or for Ambedkarites, what will be the process of history writing if not critique of the past? Because what we are looking for from the past, we are not going to get. Then how to deal with that enormous past which is there? In Ambedkar, I often see history as a critique of civilization. Similar tone I find in your writing in general and in this one as well. For you to practice history is to unpack, deconstruct the past through a feminist lens, which ends up into what I am calling history as critique. You attempt to recover the express choice of Amba in matters of sexual partner from the elephant-like narrative body of Mahabharata, which is promoting an ethics contrary to feminist vision. Thus, in the book, you are also gendering ethics in a method and style of critique. So, Mahabharata is known as a text of dharma, and so one critique which Uma ma'am is giving is to bring the question of reproduction and women's sexuality, sexual governance, and so on. And the second is she is in a way gendering the ethics, the whole notion of dharma which Mahabharata holds as a text in the past and in the present. So that critique is also very at front. Now, to quote you from the book, and I quote, I'll finish in 2-3 minutes. To quote, the Amba Bhishma encounter, as I have already stated, has a central place in the narrative structure of the Mahabharata, and yet Amba is one of those abducted princes with which Uma ma'am was talking about. The Amba Bhishma encounter, as I have already stated, has a central place in the narrative structure of the Mahabharata, and yet it remains a moral crisis. That is not a moral crisis within the gendered and ideologically slanted framing of what can be allowed to surface as a moral social crisis in the great text. So it's not a question of morality within the text. We have to bring our morality to question that morality probably. The figure of the abducted princess, Amba, represents the problem of male violence over women. It is an assault on what has emerged as a patriarchal social consensus, even among the Kshatriyas, about how women are to be given away, acquired for reproduction, as can be seen in the parallel form of marriage considered particularly suitable for the Kshatriyas, this Swayamvar. The notional self-choice is violently disrupted. So basically, if we read this chapter on Amba, she talks about many instances where her agency has been denied. So her right to choose the groom at first instance has been denied, and then when Bhishma brings her, she first time expresses that I had decided another man, and now you have brought. Then she was sent back. Then the man in which she was interested, he also denies, and then she has no place to go. So that is the situation, and it's a very powerful powerful framing which we see. The larger question is of choice. Uma ma'am is also trying to read the choice of woman through the text, the absence and presences and so on. Now, I have some questions with which I'll stop. One is the Buddhism question. For me, the first book I read was The Social Dimensions of Early Buddhism, because I work on Buddhism, and many other articles, almost all articles of Uma Chakravarti, because she is the scholar of Buddhism also. Now, in this text, in this book, I haven't read the epilogue, the best part which you have written, but I have read the whole book. The two references of Buddhism are there. Now, the way Buddhism appears in the text is sort of so. The point which I was making, either we look at past to criticize, or look at for something which is criticizing from within. And in this search for critique from within the past, you land up to Buddhism. So Buddhism, in a way, then provides a critique from within, and then even these two references which you have made, the Aganya Sutta reference and the Ashok Ghosh Buddha Charita reference, is for me coming as critique from within. Now the Buddhism, so this inclination towards Buddhism is visible in Ambedkar also, where there is this staunch critique to this Brahmanical civilization, but there is this slight inclination towards Buddhism. So we want to hear more about that. Now, the other invocation is Madhavi ends up entering into the forest. And for me, it appears almost like the theories who are denouncing the household, and probably the core issue here is for both Buddhist women who will enter into the Sangha and the woman like Madhavi here is to some sort of denial of sexual desire, and celibacy is coming. So centering desire, how these two traditions, Buddhism and Brahmanism, or the Mahabharata and the Buddhist text will encounter, how will they operate? That is one. Then the other issue is when you are talking about the Karna chapter. For me, here it appears as if the Varna Sankar is happening in reality. So Pratilom and in other work, your gendering caste, you argue that it's a fiction. Varna Sankar as an idea is a fiction to justify the already established divisions. In this Karna chapter, at least, that element is not there. In fact, it appears as if it is happening in reality, the Pratilom and Varna Sankar and so on. So if you can say something more on that. And the other tension which you talk about in Karna chapter is the sexual tension between Draupadi and Karna. And it almost appears like a gender and caste tension in moments. Although Uma Chakravarti brings structurally the two categories together, but in moments these categories can go against each other also. So while being sympathetic to Karna, you end up probably criticizing Draupadi. So how to deal with this gender and caste momentary tension which is there, if not structurally. So that is the other point, and with this I'll stop. Thank you so much.